Well, Psalm 92 is our text today, and we are coming down to the last verse of Psalm 92. It's a 15-verse psalm. Let's read the whole thing together as we wrap up this psalm. It's a psalm or song for the Sabbath day. So this was sung in celebration of God and a kind of a realignment of life. It's a good psalm to just realign, your core spiritual direction in life. It reminisces a lot on God's presence and God's temple. There are pictures here that are kind of drawn from the temple, where that place in Jerusalem that was representative of God's presence. And so let's read what they sang to one another on the Sabbath day, what we ought to sing to one another, and what we ought to reset our hearts in really every day or every week. It is a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord and to sing praises unto thy name, O Most High, to show forth thy loving kindness in the morning and thy faithfulness every night. Upon an instrument of 10 strings, and upon the psaltery, upon the harp with a solemn sound. For thou, Lord, hast made me glad through thy work. I will triumph in the works of thy hands. O Lord, how great are thy works, and thy thoughts are very deep. A brutish man knoweth not, neither doth a fool understand this. When the wicked spring up as the grass, and when all the workers of iniquity do flourish, it is that they shall be destroyed forever. But thou, Lord, art most high forevermore. For lo, thine enemies, O Lord, for lo, thine enemies shall perish. All the workers of iniquity shall be scattered. But my horn shalt thou exalt like the horn of a unicorn. I shall be anointed with fresh oil. My eye also shall see my desire on mine enemies, and mine ears shall hear my desire of the wicked that rise up against me. The righteous shall flourish like the palm tree. He shall grow like a cedar in Lebanon. Those that be planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in the courts of our God. They shall still bring forth fruit in old age. They shall be fat and flourishing, to show that the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no unrighteousness in him. So yesterday, we focused in on verses 13 and 14 about flourishing. And he used the word flourishing early when he talked about the workers of iniquity, people that have rejected God, seem like they flourish, seem like everything's doing well, but they're like grass that grows up, and they'll be like the dry grass right now in Connecticut. It's just dying. They spring up and they go away. But then in verse 12, he introduces a different kind of flourishing. The righteous shall flourish like a palm tree. Okay, so compare a weed to a tree. Compare a blade of grass to a thriving palm tree or a huge sprawling cedar tree. Those that be planted in the house of the Lord shall flourish in this way. And he's talking about the family of God, but I think also there's a more imminent practical significance to planted in the local body of God, into a church, into a place where my spirit and my soul are being cultivated constantly. There's a flourishing component to walking through this life with God and being planted in him. And he says these people will flourish. They'll still bring forth fruit in old age. How challenging is that? That as I grow older, I don't grow less significant to God's purposes in his church and through his church. They shall be fat, full. They'll have fat is a margin kind of term. It's excess. It's generosity. It's being able to have enough, not only to enjoy and bless those near me, but to bless God, to bless the work of God. And we wouldn't be a church. We wouldn't go forward at all in gospel ministry if it weren't for people that God has made flourishing, that give every week generously so that the work of God can happen. And there's a beautiful picture there that God makes us have enough. He gives us margin so we can live generously. They should be fat and flourishing. Now look at verse 15. And this gives us the why. Why does God make us flourish? Why does God give us fruit in our old age? Why does God make us full, fat, give us margin, give us excess, and flourishing as we age? Why does this happen? Because he wants us to show something, okay? To show is, we studied this verse in another psalm, it's to stand boldly out opposite, okay? It's to it's to be a declaration by my life, by my values, by my priorities, the way I live, the choices I make, the generosity that I display. It is a declaration, okay? I am showing, it's to live out loud, okay? It is to boldly be the opposite of everybody else on planet Earth in terms of their value system. On a planet that fights for me, myself, and I, that's survival of the fittest, that's, you better take care of you because no one else will. In that me-centric, man-centered, step on whoever you have to step on to survive. This verse says, no, God's going to cause you to flourish. He's going to be generous to you so that your life can show out, can declare, can be an out loud, confident, courageous declaration of faith. And what are you showing? You're showing that the Lord is upright. You're showing forth the justice of God. Your faith in God with your blessings. Knowing you've been blessed to be a blessing, okay? Living out loud in that way is a declaration of faith and dependence. And so when the wicked are flourishing and you're surrounded by question marks, but you're living out of an abundant heart and life, you are validating the justice, the uprightness, the goodness, the good heart of God. So we are made flourishing. We are made full. Why? Yes, to live generously, but what does that do? It shows that the Lord is upright. It validates the gospel. Your long testimony, your long life of faithfulness to many generations behind you is an irrefutable exclamation point on the uprightness of God. Not only his existence, but his nature, his character, his heart, his goodness, his faithfulness. And that's the reason not to give up. That's as you grow and as you walk with God and as you age, that's the reason not to be discouraged. That's the reason to stay engaged in your church family and to stay engaged in the work of the gospel, because you are showing, you're a living, vibrant testimony to others who see you. Your life speaks volumes. Your presence speaks volumes to the power of the gospel over many decades. I am so grateful to the seniors and those that are near my age and older in our church. Why? Because you're showing to a whole new generation of New Englanders the uprightness of God, and you're doing it well. You are faithful in it, and I love to team with you in that regard. And our church is full of young families. I am so thankful for all the young couples and young people. I can't wait till we have kids ministry, because a lot of them can't come to church right now because there's no nursery and all these things. But a lot of young families that God's will let us touch and reach, and they're setting their family on a good track. Why? Partially because of your testimony and your example. So the psalmist ends it right here. He is my rock, and there is no unrighteousness in him. And what profound truths, the truths of Scripture, the truths of the Psalms that expound the character of God, these are truths, these are bedrock truths. These are truths that you literally build your whole life upon. You bank on them, you stand on them, you trust, you rest in them. And so the psalmist, after all of this comparison and contrasting a God follower and God's works to the works of foolish and wicked men, he comes back to, he is my rock. Okay. Now, in Israel, and really all over the world, but in Israel in particular, there's a lot of rock. Okay. And especially in Jerusalem, this Mount Moriah, okay, where Abraham was planning to sacrifice his son, Mount Moriah is now the rock on which Temple Mount is built. It's one of several mountains right in the heart of Jerusalem. You have the Mount of Olives across the valley. You have Mount Moriah. You have Mount Zion to the west, just like right there. They're all right in succession, just a succession of hills. Um, so this mountain is really a giant rock. And I have an idea that this psalmist, writing for the Sabbath day, writing for a time when Israel's supposed to be thinking about God and worshiping God and their temple, whether they were in Jerusalem or not, just directing their hearts and minds towards God's presence in that temple, and the fact that that temple was built in one of the highest places in that area, but also one of the rockiest. It's a dome. It's a huge dome of a rock. I mean, it's a big dome. The square or the rectangular structure is built into under it what is a dome. If you could lift off the rectangular structure of all those gigantic stones in Jerusalem and clear it all away, there you'd just see a rock dome. And it's a beautiful picture. That building and this metaphor is a beautiful picture that this psalmist is saying, I'm going to build my life on him. Now, I can speak to 43 years of that God, you can build your life on God, and he will sustain you, and he's the only reliable rock. And there is no unrighteousness in him. So lots of times in our lives, we are tempted to question God's reason, God's motives, God's nature or character. Satan is really good at casting questions on God's character. Is he just? Is he fair? Is he right? And the psalmist is banking his life, building his life on two really foundational bedrock truths. God is my rock. He's my foundation. Everything about my life is standing on him. And he is always right. He is never unrighteous. He never does the wrong thing. He is always motivated and purely driven by absolute perfection and holiness and righteousness. There is no unrighteousness in him. So there we have Psalm 92. What a great psalm. Thank the Lord that when we're planted in him, we can flourish all the way through our lives. We can bear fruit all the way through our old age. We can be fat and flourishing to show that the Lord is upright, that the Lord is good. So my friend, today, show forth, stand out boldly opposite of the world around you. Be joyful, be confident, be courageous, be devoted, be faithful to the Lord. Look for ways to share the gospel. Look for ways to bless others. God will go before you and he will use you in it.